Derivative, typically of an artist or work of art, imitative of the work of another person, and usually disapproved of for that reason. It's been said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but what many people often forget is the second half of this popular Oscar Wilde quote. Throughout my entire viewing of 2022's Smile, written and directed by Parker Finn, I couldn't help but be constantly reminded of plenty other horror movies sharing very similar themes and gimmicks. The film felt to me like an amalgamation of The Ring, It Follows, with a dash of Final Destination, and that's to name just a few. Actually, upon watching the movie's trailer for the first time, Koji Suzuki's Ring Stories, whose books led to a huge media franchise including multiple film adaptations, it was immediately the first thing that popped into my mind. As it happens, one specific scene in Smile blatantly emulates a very famous jump scare from The Ring, although I'm sure plenty of people would simply call it an homage. Now, that's not to say that Smile doesn't have any merits of its own, or that it's a bad movie per se. I actually think it's quite good. As a matter of fact, there were a few moments in the film where I felt myself genuinely shivering in anticipation of what would happen next. And while I am usually not one for jump scares, I must admit there are some good ones here. We're also treated to some very creepy and disturbing imagery, some of which may linger with you for a bit. Now I really must mention Sosie Bacon's standout performance as the movie's lead. She absolutely carries the entire movie on her shoulders, and she definitely pulls it off. Which is quite the feat considering the film's outlandish themes along with some of the usual horror movie tropes she needs to put up with. I also have to give praise to the creative directing and specifically to the sound editing, which really highlighted the unnerving happenings on screen. If only the themes of trauma and guilt this movie tries to tackle were a little more fleshed out, especially when it comes to the supernatural entity in question. Ultimately, it's just a shame that the film never really does anything new or particularly interesting with the formula it strictly clings to, which in the end sort of prevented me from fully enjoying it. The derivative nature of the film also meant that I saw most of the movie's action coming a mile away, including the last act, which kind of stumbles near the finish line. In that regard, I could actually see myself suggesting the film to people who either haven't seen lots of horror movies before, or to those who don't have any issues overlooking similarities in plot lines and heavy-ended homages. I find myself really struggling internally when it comes to trying to rate this film. On the one hand, it's very competently made and effective, with very solid acting from Sosie Bacon as the lead. But on the other, it's just so unoriginal, and I don't think that I'm at fault here for being a horror movie fanatic. I'm still looking forward to seeing more from first-time director Parker Finn. I'm convinced that he is capable of better, more original horror, and I cannot wait to be there for it. In the end, I give Smile the very respectful, if somewhat generous rating of 7 out of 10. Go check it out for yourself.